in all of show business. And the favorite was, for a while, Burt Reynolds.
I'd seen a TV show and I thought the guy was terrific, had all the right elements for Bond.
Cubby had a thing about Bond being over 6 feet. He wanted Bond to be tall. And the second and most important thing was he said, you can't do Bond and not have him be British. It's absolutely ridiculous. It would be like casting an Englishman in a John Wayne part in a Western. It doesn't work.
While the producers search for a new 007, they must also develop a Bond story for the new generation of moviegoers.
Cubby said to me, here are several books. Which one would you like to do? I wanted to do Live and Let Die because I thought it had more of an edge to it. Because all the villains were black, and I knew it was a very chancy thing because we were making it in the time of the Black Panthers. We were making it in the time of really a black revolution.
While Tom Mankiewicz transforms Ian Fleming's most controversial novel into a screenplay, Guy Hamilton begins looking for locations.
Tom knew that I was a jazz buff and he said, you'd love New Orleans. And I said, oh, come on, Tom, we're not going to do the Mardi Gras because Terence Young has done that with the Junkanoo. What else is in New Orleans? He said, well, there are jazz funerals. In about 5 minutes flat, we conned up that sequence.
Whose funeral is it?
Yours.
But I knew that Mr. Broccoli and Mr. Saltzman were not going to send a large unit to New Orleans just to shoot 4 minutes screen time. What else is in New Orleans, Tom? The canals, the levees. Oh, that sounds good. Yeah, we could do a chase. And that's how the New Orleans sequence built up.
There was a wonderful collaborative way that Bonds were put together. Guy had ideas. Harry had a million ideas. Cubby had some ideas.
I'd wandered around the Caribbean, found absolutely nothing of any interest.
But then on location scouting, driving by, there suddenly was this sign by the side of the road in huge letters, and it said, trespassers will be eaten. And everybody stopped, and it was this crocodile farm. The name of the fellow who ran the crocodile farm was Ross Kananga.
This absolutely marvelous man, a complete lunatic.
And I named the villain after him.
With the story coming together, producers need one final element, James Bond.
And I did say to Sean, it's got crocodiles, it's got a boat chase, it's got... and I was trying to kind of just see if I could tweak his interest. And he said to me, there's only two things I've ever wanted to own in my life, a golf course and my own bank. He said, and I have the golf course and I'm well on the way to the bank. I'm not coming back.
I met Cubby and Harry because we used to gamble and went to the Curzon House Club. And so I would sit across from the table with these two big spenders. And eventually, we became friends. And then one day, Harry called me and he said, well, Cubby and I would like you to do the next one.
They came up with Roger Moore. It seemed like a good idea. He's attractive. He was debonair.
Sean's personality comes through very strongly in all the Bonds he made. And my personality is entirely different. So I sort of read a couple of books, and one of them it said that Bond had returned from a mission somewhere. He had killed, but he didn't like killing.
Sean could sit at a table with a beautiful girl, and you had the option as a writer of either having him lean over and kiss her or stick a knife in her. Roger could kiss the girl, but if he stuck the knife in her, he would look nasty.
So that was the way I played it. Somebody really didn't like doing it.
You don't understand, see? They'll kill me if I do.
And I'll kill you if you don't.
You got the feeling of the English gentleman more out of Roger than you got out of Sean.
On the other hand, Roger, and that's why the humor maybe increased in Live and Let Die, could play a quip very well.
I'm going to be completely useless to you.
Oh, sure we'd be able to lick you into shape.
Roger knew his way around a sophisticated comedy scene very well. So you could do things with Roger, right? You wrote for Roger differently.
But for the new 007, comparisons are bound to be made.
He was filling some pretty big shoes.
The only thing that worried me was how could I say, my name is Bond, James Bond without saying, "My name is Bond, James Bond." That was the one thing I had a couple of nightmares about.
I remember him saying about the logo that was still obviously Sean Connery's image. He says, when are we going to change the logos there?
We tried in various ways not to imitate Sean where we didn't have to.
Guy said, "I think we should avoid any direct comparisons by you not saying the things that Sean said."
A martini, shaken, not stirred.
Bourbon, no ice, please.
If it isn't enough that Roger Moore has to worry about the shadow of Sean Connery, he also has to avoid imitating another 60s icon, Simon Templar.
The first issue was that they were making sure that he never raised his eyebrow as he had done in The Saint, because that was like a famous mannerism of his.
I mean, we've all done the Bond pictures. We all know each other. And for a newcomer to come in, it's a very daunting experience.
Guy Hamilton, I think, was more worried about me taking over Bond than I was.
And Roger took it very well indeed.
My name's Bond. James Bond.
He made it his, because he is a sophisticated man, so he made it his James Bond.
Absolutely. There's no sense in going off half-cocked.
Even before much of the cast is signed, filmmakers begin to work on one of the most ambitious action sequences ever produced.
Until we almost started shooting, it just said, scene 156, the most terrific boat chase you've ever seen, because I never got around to writing it until Harry and David Picker and other people said, "Where's this terrific boat chase?"
Of course, when we got there was a slight problem because all the bayous now were kind of heavily overgrown with reeds and you couldn't really see them. We whistled up a helicopter and we started flying around.
We got to the beautiful house that's in the boat chase where there's a wedding on the little point and the boats go across the point. And we both said, "Oh, this is great."
And I remember we landed in this kind of backyard, as you call them in America, and a lady came out.
They decided that the point on which we lived was just right for a boat to leap across. And the first we realized was when a helicopter landed on our front lawn, to the great delight of the children.
And she said, "Boys, boys, boys." We could see children in the background looking, you see, and she said, "May I help you?" So I said, "Yeah, we're, scouting for James Bond."
The director came and asked if we would mind if they used our property. Of course, we were thrilled to death. It sounded like the most exciting thing that's happened on the bayou in a long time.
I'd never ever seen Southern hospitality. These people were just amazing.
Finding the location for the amazing boat stunts is only half the challenge.
They'd spoken to some people called the Stingers. I think they were in the Everglades somewhere, one of those places, and these boats kind of went up a 45-degree ramp, and kind of jumped about 4 feet, something like that. Well, we had to do a jump of at least about 85 feet.
And we've had a number of problems, let's say, in getting boats to go as far as we had to go.
Stuntman Jerry Comeau is determined to make the boat jumps work.
We found that Jerry, when he actually hit the ramp, he'd got to put the motor in tilt, just at that moment when it hit.
On October the 16th, 1972, Guy Hamilton calls action, and stuntman Jerry Comeau races his Glastron speedboat at 75 miles per hour toward the specially built ramp.
We did hold the world record for boat jumps, and I think that particular day, Jerry jumped 115 feet.
And the whole thing, one take, and that's it. But all the hard work been done pre-production.
On the second jump, which is definitely a slower boat, and it's one of the baddie boats, we came over the cars and we landed in the water, but we had difficulty because they had the boat that Bond was in going on, which created a wake, and that wake, while my boat landed on it, carried it off into another direction, and of course we turned over and ended up off in the weeds.
Stuntmen are not the only ones who need expert boating skills.
We did have 1 or 2 accidents during the preparation.
The problem with jet boats is that if your engine should cut for some unknown reason, you can't steer the boat. We came around a bend, and the boat was on its sort of tilted at an angle, and obviously the gas tank wasn't full. And so the engine cut out, and I got hit, bang, and I flew into the back of the boat. And I came out of that with what I thought was losing my teeth and with a leg that wouldn't move. This was the day before we started shooting, when we were rehearsing.
Meanwhile, the producers set the rest of the cast, including the challenging part of Bond's leading lady, Solitaire.
I originally wanted Diana Ross. I thought it would be, and I thought it would be in a very positive way, barrier breaking.
The producers decide to stick with Ian Fleming's original conception of the character as a white woman and start scouting for an actress who can capture the sensuality of a Bond woman and the virginal innocence of the character.
I was doing a series called The Aeneid Line, and my agent, John Redway, called me and said they wanted to meet me for the Bond film. I remember when I came in, Harry said, "Take off your coat." So I took off my coat. "Take off your hat." He sort of barked, and I took off this fur hat, and of course down came all my hair tumbling down. And that was it. He said, "We want you to play the lead in the James Bond film." And I went, "What?" And I said, "Well, you know, I'm doing the Aeneid Line." And he said, "You know, never mind." He said, "I want you to come and meet my partner."
I was on the street doing across 110th Street. And David Picker, I believe he was then vice president of the United Artists, came up to me in the street and said, "What are you doing directly after you do the film?" So I said, "Probably going home." He says, "I wouldn't count on it. I think you better get ready to go to